Donald Trump's chances of ever becoming president again are shrinking fast, with two more blows today, starting with the runoff election in Georgia for the last remaining Senate seat. In last month's federal election, no candidate in Georgia got 50%, so the top two today ran again in a runoff. The Democrats' Raphael Warnock, a former pastor, and Donald Trump's handpicked candidate, former football star Herschel Walker, a family values campaigner who turned out to have multiple partners and paid for one's abortion. Now, if Trump's candidate lost, the Democrats would have 51 of the 100 Senate seats, a majority, and the Republicans just 49. Joining me is Sky News US correspondent Annelise Nielsen. Annelise Nielsen, thank you so much for joining me. What is the result of this rerun election and what does it mean?
Look, the result is Raphael Warnock's won again, and it was a very close race against Herschel Walker, who pretty quickly in the evening conceded defeat. This was a tough one. He was outspent almost 2-1, but this is also an interesting race looking at just how important this is going to be for the Senate, but also looking at how the Republicans ran the race. Even as it went to a runoff, we didn't see Donald Trump come to support Herschel Walker, who was one of his very high-profile endorsements. He didn't appear on the campaign trail with him. Herschel Walker pulled back massively, and at almost every media appearance, he had someone appearing alongside him to help him because he wasn't performing well. There were days on end where he wasn't on the campaign trail. He was being outmaneuvered by Warnock, and that's shown up in the result. But the other issue for the Republican Party is going to be looking at how Donald Trump's endorsements went. They didn't go very well, and he still has such a strong stranglehold on the party, in particular among House Republicans who credit their success with his endorsement. They're going to have to grapple with this for a long time to come. And now Democrats have control in the Senate. This means they have subpoena power for key committees. It means they get to control committees that were once split, and Kamala Harris doesn't have to be as involved in the Senate. She can step back and potentially launch her run for the presidency in 2024.
Yes, if it had been a 50-50 even result, then of course Kamala Harris would have had the tying vote and the Democrats wouldn't have had control of all those committees. But now things change. Donald Trump, despite pulling out, not wanting to get involved, is still stained by the fact that he picked this guy. His candidates have done pretty poorly in the key seats in particular. I suspect that this is a big blow for his hopes to become president, and it will encourage President Joe Biden, who's been very underestimated, to think that maybe he should indeed run again next election.
Look, I think on both counts, you're right. Donald Trump isn't doing well at the ballot box. Despite his 2016 win, it just hasn't been replicated again. And this has been another win for Joe Biden. Warnock was being pushed forward by the Republicans as having voted with Joe Biden 96% of the time. If midterms has traditionally been used as a referendum on the president's popularity, he hasn't done badly. He's the first president since FDR to not lose a single incumbent running again in the midterms. You can't underestimate how significant that is. And this is in the backdrop of everything that should be going the Republicans' way. The economy's bad. We're facing down recession. Inflation is terrible. There should be so many talking points for Republicans that should be cutting through, and none of them are cutting through over the noise of Donald Trump. And so if he does continue to have the stranglehold on the party, it's going to be just such an obvious solution for the Democrats to say, hey, well, Joe Biden beat him once, can beat him again. And the other factor is there's just not any strong Democrats, waiting in the wings. There's no one there that's ready to take over that's an obvious choice. A lot of the names being floated around simply aren't even interested when you ask them. Newsom's Stacey Abrams was supposed to be a winner. She's all but out now. And the Republicans do have such a strong bench waiting. But if they don't get given the chance by Donald Trump, they might end up having to wait another 4 years.
Well, that's a tragedy. Trump has a stranglehold on the party. He could win the nomination, but almost certainly wouldn't win the election. So, terrible. Now, to make it worse for him, one of the 5 or so legal cases the Democrats have mounted against Trump and his business, it's reached a verdict. Trump organisations been found guilty of tax fraud. Top executives dodged taxes on fringe benefits like luxury cars, rent-free apartments. Trump says he knew nothing about it, but this is going to hurt him as well, isn't it?
Look, I actually don't think it is going to hurt him at all, because it's not that different from what we already know. And when you have years of him having hidden his tax returns, there's a lot of reasonable speculation that there's a reason that you would do that. Most presidents do put their tax returns out for public scrutiny for the exact reason that people want to know that there isn't any kind of fraud. And so the general assumption, I think, is when there's smoke, there's fire. And that's certainly among Donald Trump's critics. His supporters could care less about some of this stuff. They've always supported the fact that he's done the best deal he can. He's a moneymaker. He's a businessman. I got to tell you, that's still the number one thing I heard during the 2020 election from his supporters. He's a businessman. He knows how to make money. He knows how to get the best deal. So I don't think this will touch the sides of those supporters. And it's just those moderates in the middle who are kind of sick of talking about him and need another option. And they're the ones who aren't going to turn out or are going to find themselves voting Democrat. So I don't think this is actually going to hurt him that much. I think we need specifics out of the tax returns that actually tells us something new that could turn the tide slightly.
Annelise Nielsen, thank you so much for your time.